All right, so just do a quick trip around the charts and that just for the weekend review. Look, not going to go too in depth to it all. Basically, we're just seeing a continuation of the price action that we saw throughout the bulk of the week and that. So I'll start off with gold because obviously, sort of, we're seeing quite a sort of pullback from the highs. Well, I say quite a pullback in that, as you can see here, it's pretty much smack bang on the 38% fib. So it's not a massive pullback by any means, but certainly, like I was trying to get long around these sort of pullback areas around the 50s, and it had a little bit of a reaction. So obviously the market was agreeing somewhat, but then sort of obviously it's just charged through, and certainly finished the week very weakly. Finished the week very weak. So yeah, it's hard to sort of really sort of see where it's going to go. As I was saying the other day, it's going to need to do some work before it gets back up there. I would say that we may see some early pushes here. We did see a little bit if we carry these other sort of areas through, and this is what I was looking at originally, these kind of zones to get that bounce. But obviously it's just cut through there. So next zones that we're looking at are pretty much exactly where it stopped here, which is on the 38, around that sort of 1930, 1934-ish kind of zone. A break of that. You can see this one better on a daily will sort of show it at 1919. The 4 hour actually gives you a better look at what that zone was, because obviously it was respected twice with a little bit of a tiny little double bottom here, around that sort of 1914, which when you consider, that's coming down to a 50% drop off from the highs of that run. The run was insane. $200 in like 2 weeks or something. So very strong. And obviously, I think the biggest thing is the fact that Middle East is what got it going, and it just didn't sort of progress. It hasn't sort of pushed on in the way that obviously the market thought it would. And for that reason, people are selling it off. That's on a fundamental level. It didn't have enough of the backing to get that close, that monthly close over the 2000. That again, on a technical side, people are going to sort of get scared off a little bit with that. So I don't think that this is like sort of okay, bang, Middle East situation's the only thing that drove up here, and now we're going to come back down there. Obviously we do have this gap from that sort of 1838, which if it goes back down here, that's some insane price action, basically. But in the short here and now, I think we can draw up a couple little lines to sort of say, look, this will be a nice sort of indication. I think sort of when I was sort of trading it and sort of marking out earlier in the week, obviously the lower time frames, we got the little pushes, but the lower time frames not enough to get the overall swing moving around. Obviously, you want the higher time frame confirmation, the better. Like if you're looking for a bit more of a directional pull and push, sorry. But yeah, certainly at the moment, 38%. So, even if it did manage to rally off this could keep this whole move very intact because 38% is not a deep pullback. Though I don't think at this stage, we've really got anything sort of driving it to spur on a whole nother big push. So, I think at best in the short term, we could be looking for a little bit of sort of a range play. If we tighten up this sort of one here, we can sort of look for some topside targets if we can break through. But yeah, certainly I think you want to get back above that 1967, 1970 really zone to sort of really sort of show that they're committing. But for now, I think if we can pop out of this falling resistance, which I'll just chuck a alert on. Let's channel resistance as well. If we can get a pop out of that little channel, I think you may see a bit of an effort to sort of get back up here. But I imagine that we'll sort of tend to, if we can sort of rally from this point here. But I imagine whether it be sort of from, as I said, this sort of 1930, or if it does decide to come down 1914, these kind of zones, I imagine we're going to see something to this sort of effect, where we'll see just a back and forth kind of play. I don't think, as I said, at the moment, till something concrete happens with the Middle East sort of thing, I don't think we're going to be sort of seeing any sort of real catalyst to get it back up to be retesting the highs. But, anything could happen with these things at the moment. But I think certainly before we sort of see any sort of solid move back up, you want to see some sort of like some basing action, some like sideways, like similar we did down here when we were sort of coming down. As you can see, it was these sort of grind, and then it's just sideways for a bit, grind, like sort of just coming down, and just went sideways for a bit. This is what I'll be looking for. Some price action where it sort of really tightens up. It has a multiple attempts of pushing lower, but we can see that the buyers are valuing it and pushing it up time and time again. Once we see that, we'll drag a little box around it and we'll wait for that breakout. I mean, this one here came with a very strong sort of negative divergence, which we actually called as it was happening. And obviously the reaction was then sort of bolstered by the Middle East situation. But this is what you want to see before you see it sort of move up. Like, obviously this, what I've drawn up here is quite sort of dramatic in terms of its size. So it could be something to this sort of effect. But the general idea is you want to see, I think, before we sort of warrant another sort of decent push up towards the sort of 1980s, is some sideways grind where we can see that, you know, you're exhausting the rest of those sellers that are trying to push it down, and whatever they throw at it to push it down, we're getting the segment and we're seeing it by the price action that the people are absorbing it, that the people are buying it, and they're going, okay, boom. And once those sellers are depleted and all those buyers have got their fill, well, then the buyers are going to start going, well, I'm happy to buy it here, but it's not getting here. I'll buy a little bit higher. And that's when we'll see our push up and we look for that breakout. But I think before sort of looking to add to sort of longs or anything more with the sort of gold positions, sort of look for this sort of sideways action, and then of course just wait for the break to come out the top side there. Hopefully, you know, for longs sort of sake, it happens around this zone, but again, it could be coming back down around this sort of 1912 area. If it breaks underneath 1907, well, you know, I think sort of you can see it's pretty clear cut. It's right on the top of this little zone that it made here for the 1886, but you know, it could be in trouble if it sort of goes under that sort of 1908 kind of section. All right, moving on. We've got DXY. DXY sort of came up pretty much smack bang in that 106 zone. So just after Friday's video, we were sort of saying, and I was saying, look, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a flip up here. And of course, we did get the flip, but then it got sold back out into. It was incredibly, sort of just boring price action really through the day, because you can see that it was just sort of like just sideways. It dropped down, and as soon as it drops down, okay, finally we got the break. As I said, we had that alert set underneath that 4-hour wick. Came down here, fine, we're done. Oh, we're back up here. Maybe we're just retesting. No, here we go, confirmation down, boom, and then right back up again. So just boring sort of like back and forth sideways action here. I think a lot of people are expecting this, given if you jump onto a weekly, it is certainly in that zone of like, here's your weekly area through the middle here. Well, you know, this is support, break, up, retest, and then you'd expect it to come back down this zone here. But again, down here underneath the lows, that's the confirmation. And once you get the confirmation there, you'll see it pick up a little bit, I reckon, because that's, at the moment, it's still drifting and drifting back up. And of this whole push back up, 50% it seems to have held, and it's a rejection zone. So yeah, we're going to have to sort of see what they do sort of with it sort of early week. Just sort of in terms of whether we're going to see this continued grind higher. RSI is definitely sort of rolling down as we are sort of seeing it push back up. This is on the weekly, so the higher time frame. But yeah, again, you're going to have to sort of see it like even out. Like, I think a lot of the people, myself included, expected a big up, down, flip, and a meltdown, similar to you know, these kind of things here, like break, up, bang, smack down. But if we sort of see how much it's come back from this whole sort of move from the bottom, it's still right up the top there. So I think there's still some people that are happy to buy it. However, I still maintain my sort of price targets a little bit lower. What I'm kind of looking for in the short term, though, is really just a bit of a break of this sort of red line down over here. As you can see, I'm sort of looking for this kind of bear flag continuation to sort of happen, which obviously, as it was grinding at the highs there, just wasn't able to do. It did sort of come up, and you can see where it stopped is in line with that previous little range, intermediate range that it was sort of playing around with. So I think sort of a break of this sort of rising support here will be a decent sort of indication that we might be sort of seeing a bit lower, but certainly under that 105.37, it doesn't look to have too much support down there, at least to going back to retest this main zone for the lows. So really, I think the fact that it's pushed up, as I said, this I got trapped out with this. I think a lot of the market did this nice little head and shoulders and then flew up higher. But the fact that it just stalled at these levels at the top over here, and also a lot of the talk around it at the moment is the general consensus that the Fed are done for now with hikes. I think the of course, it's like everybody. They're just saying, look, you just got to wait for the data. The data will support it. But I think that we could be sort of seeing, as I said, I'm still sort of maintaining a bit of a push to the downside. So we're just going to have to wait and see how we go come early week. Obviously, taking out all previous wicks are going to be nice indications as things sort of tend to sort of roll over a little bit more. Flipping across onto Aussie. Aussie, what a week. Nice breakout, bang, back to breakout point. Which chart did I have this marked on? Yeah, so the 61 zone is trying to hold, but obviously closed a little bit down underneath there. Look, it's hard to sort of really say because it was like I've been waiting to get the long and trading this area long for so long. You get the breakout here and it's just fallen flat on its face. The only thing I could say potentially for upside on this, obviously, would be coinciding with a bit of a US dollar, broader sort of US dollar sell-off, would be this sort of first break that we had here. This is on the daily. So we had a breakout and then bang, smacked straight back down into it. Obviously, everybody looking at this goes, oh, well, that's another fail. We're expecting downside. And if we look at the weekly, we've got pretty much the same thing here. Breakout, bang, smack down on the nose. Could we see the same thing on a weekly as we did with the sort of the daily move there, whereas we had the big breakout, got slapped on the nose, and then we see another push up higher. Certainly, if we go above 65.20, then that's it. That's the bottom. That's Aussie. We're going to see a continued push up higher. But you know, these people are happy to sell it, and obviously there was quite a disappointing sort of smackdown sort of come through the rest of the week. It tried to rally, not really, but like sort of somewhat a couple of times, but it's pretty hard to sort of call it much with it all. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do get a little bit of a push up around this area, but certainly it's got a lot of work to do to prove it now. I think the only thing that's really going to get the Aussie going, we've got a bit of data out this week as well that could support it. And I think that's really what the market's going to be looking for. I mean, if you're getting all these other central banks that are sort of pausing, I don't think anybody's really realistically mentioning cuts, and anybody that does is just out of touch. But basically, sort of like, you've got the RBA who have just raised against, in this case, the Fed, who are pretty much coming to the end of their cycle. If we have supporting data, so with the jobs, with when CPI comes out, these kind of things, they're going to be drivers for the Aussie. But again, we still just need to see US dollar sell off. Till that happens, the gains for the top side of Aussie aren't really, so they're going to be muted, basically. So yeah, certainly I'll be looking for, as I've got the alert set here, you need to take out Friday's top wick. We could see a little bit of a turn up from that. I mean, RSI is coming back in. Well, this is the thing with RSI, we haven't sort of really come down under this level. As you can see, every time it's sort of come down into this sort of like 45 zone, it's been bought up. So this is another sort of indicator that maybe we could be seeing something a little bit, if there's sort of at least a short-term rally effort here. But of course, we just got to wait to sort of see, like with everything, of course, how the week sort of starts off with it all. But certainly, I think a lot of people, myself included, were sort of like, okay, fine, this great sort of Aussie sell-off that we've had from the last 3 months or so, finally we're going to start to see a bit of a break up high here. Now it's got a lot of the market questioning, well, was this all just a stop run? And we're going to continue down lower. Certainly that's a possibility. And if 62.80s go, well, yeah, that's definitely a sign that we're going to be going a considerable bit lower, I would say. So yeah, again, very much a wait and see sort of outlook on this. A couple of the supporting ones are also leading to Aussie sort of coming down. So if we flip across to copper, as I said, I was looking for this little channel to be forming. Bang, failed. So, and also closed quite near the lows there as well. So if we get onto the 1 hour. I mean, you can't really trust the 1 hour coming into the end of the week, but it's trying to hold the zone. As we saw, Aussie, actually, let's flip back onto the Aussie for 1 second. One thing working in the Aussie favour on the lower time frame here is the fact that it really did grind through this area here. Obviously, they're trying to push it down, trying to push it down, trying to push it down. Even this sort of zone here, we came from 63 down to 38. That was the biggest move we sort of saw through the day. And obviously, at one point, you had two long bearish candles really looking like it was ready to melt down, but buyers were going, okay, let's buy it up here. And as you can see, this is only on the 1 hour, but we're seeing, buying power on these. There's that negative divergence coming again. And, negative divergence are one of my favorite sort of reversal trades. So you need to get back up above these wicks. As I said, that's where we've got the alert set to get above sort of Friday's top wicks. But that's what's going to be a slight indicator. We've got a bit of a channel sort of forming along down here. We haven't really got this bottom side. That doesn't really count for anything. That was more just to give us an idea of where it may have gone if it melted down. But I said around the 30s, 40s, we might be sort of getting a bit of a bounce, and 38's sort of come in and sort of given us a bit of a push up. So yeah, taking out those wicks there, you've obviously got this sort of falling resistance. Sorry, I lost my words there for a second, a little bit late on the Sunday night, which, we can see. It has respected this a number of times. So I think getting back up above the wicks, getting above this sort of falling resistance, we've got a couple of horizontals to deal with there. We could see a little bit of a push back up into this sort of range over here. Aussie also does like to have sort of slight head and shoulders for their reversals. So if we do see something along here, we could be seeing, the start of a shoulder, head, push back up around this sort of mid 64s, another shoulder before sort of coming back up. That'd almost give you a pretty good price target to get back up above back up testing those 65-20 zones. So if we see US dollar selling off, I think you still could see a little bit of Aussie coming through. Certainly a negative divergence is always a good thing to see when you're looking for a base. But yeah, if we go across back onto copper, we failed that channel. It was a 4-hour channel that I was looking at really. As you can see marked out, we've come through, closed, and sort of ended up to the downside here. So as to sort of where copper will go from here, I mean, look, we could say that we've got a bit of a support with a horizontal intermediate sort of one around this zone here. Put this over here. I think this is a good sort of point to sort of say that, look, if we break through, get rid of this now. If we can break through the sort of 10, what's this 10? As I said, late on the Friday. It's if we can break through the 360 zone, then we're looking up for this main buy area again down here. Certainly the reaction was quite strong off the top over here, but again, it only matters if you get that follow through. It really sort of came to a head on this sort of falling resistance that we've seen respected all the way through since start of the year. So that is something quite strong to sort of contend with. And what you could actually almost be looking at if this does come into play is a little bit more of a descending triangle, which could very much come to a point where we sort of squeeze out, and if you can, you get a break to the top side, or you'll just get a bounce, dribble, complete free fall and come down the bottom side here. So I think, again, I still think this 355 is a very sort of crucial area, this support zone, but certainly in the short term, I think that this little support area just below where we are now could offer a little bit of a bounce area, and then we can sort of start to sort of draw up some more lines as to sort of where we want to go. In terms of sort of a short-term falling resistance, we're starting to see this sort of shore up a little bit here as well. So if we drag this into somewhat of a channel, it's sort of coming a little bit close here. Don't want to fit it so it just does work, but it is seeming to be a little bit of a channel. So again, a break of this sort of falling resistance, then we'll start to draw up some lines, and we'll start to pick our new little channel. It's coming out the top side there. Again, that's only on the 1 hour. So a 4 hour here, we're coming down, we're oversold. Again, well, it's not really a negative divergence because, it didn't really close at the end of the week, but you are seeing this kind of thing happening again. As I was saying, here's one lot of lows. Sorry, it's probably more from this one's better to sort of put it. But, here's one lot of lows, which is down here. Next lot of lows, it's moving down. Price action at the same time didn't quite get to the same level as we had previously, as you can see with these two here. So it hasn't quite sort of come down as deep as it had previously. Okay, and finally, just sort of finish off with China, and the grind continues. Broke through out this tiny, as I said, like through these little wick zones, and I thought, look, okay, this is the time, we're coming down here, but again, they've decided to push it back up. So we're up into the bottom of this sort of mid-range swing point for this range. So again, it's at the moment, it's got the RSI supporting it to really sort of push up a little bit further here. So if we sort of break through the zone, as I said, pretty much close right underneath that alert that we had sort of set up, a pop of that, then, we pretty much know that you're going to be looking at this falling resistance or the major horizontals across the top over here. So, and basically, really, it's just the grind continues. There's not a great deal to say. Till we can sort of break this sort of like 726 zone to the downside, we're just going to see complete more sideways action. So it's been 3 months in this sort of sideways move at the moment. So it's not really sort of too much to sort of report on till we get a break one way or the other, and then we can start to sort of look at some better positions. But till then, it's a 1% range, so it's not really doing anything. Cool. And so that's about it from me.